Just about everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The Auburn Tigers fall 70-59 in front of a very animated crowd that was certainly let down on Saturday night. I'm Zach Blackerby. He is Darrell Dapprich, and this is a special live edition of Locked On Auburn. And Darrell, I mean, from poor shooting to Jalen Williams, arguably your most important player, looking like he had a pretty rough knee injury, with him going down, nothing went Auburn's way tonight.
Yeah, here's the deal. This is a pretty easy analysis, one of the easiest ones we've done. Kentucky has dudes, okay? Let's just be honest. They got a bunch of blue chip guys. They got a bunch of 5 stars. They got NBA talent. The problem with Kentucky coming into this game and to this point of this year was no continuity, no consistency, and trying to fuse that group together to make a team. And they didn't guard, okay? Well, when Kentucky is motivated and you have Kentucky's attention and Calipari has them, we're the underdog. Everyone loves Auburn. Game day is going to be there. They blew out South Carolina. I mean,
Sure.
Every single thing that Calipari could use to get Kentucky to be locked in. And again, that's a respect thing to Auburn. Auburn completely had their attention. When Kentucky is that way and takes it seriously and is engaged, they are the best team in the SEC, talent-wise, and when they play at that level. It's the team that beat North Carolina. It's the team that beat Miami. The problem is they haven't shown that much this year because they've played too much individual basketball and refused to defend. Tonight, look, we can talk about Auburn's shooting woes, Zach, but a lot of that is attributed to the way Kentucky guarded. Everything seemed hard. Now, they missed some open shots, but early on in the game, you could tell Kentucky disrupted Auburn's flow off ball.
Sure. Yeah, but I still think the focus, though, is, and I get the effort thing, and you're right. Kentucky tried harder and played tougher tonight because they were motivated than they normally do. But Kentucky gives out points like it's nothing. Their whole strategy has been, we're going to outscore you. If you would have told me, and I'll ask you this too, Kentucky scores 70 against Auburn, I say Auburn covers the 8.5-point spread because they score 85. Like, if you would have told me Kentucky was going to score 70, I would have taken that in a heartbeat, Darrell.
Yeah.
This is about Auburn's inability to score and a lack of offensive flow. And they were doing stuff that they just haven't done, and they haven't been successful doing. Auburn being 4 of 22 from 3 should never happen with this roster. The way this roster is built, they should be attacking the basket over and over and over and over again. And they didn't do it. They didn't do that. And it's extremely frustrating. Extremely frustrating. Your 3-point shooting outside of Denver Jones tonight. Jalen Williams 0 for 2. Trey Donaldson 0 for 1. Janai 0 for 3. He should never shoot 3 threes in a game. Never, unless he made the first 2. Chris Moore 0 for 1. KD 0 for 2. Aiden 0 for 3. Aiden can't make anything that's not right next to the basket. Chaney Johnson 0 for 2. He should not be shooting 2 threes in a game, especially the one where Auburn had some serious momentum and he just threw something up there. That was a bizarre shot. The shot selection, it's so frustrating. And I know Bruce Pearl wants to be seen by his players as, you've got a green light. But at some point, Bruce Pearl's got to say, guys, you don't have the green light. We need to actually run the offense.
Look, I've said this a lot on your show about how 2 things could be true at once. I get it that Auburn had poor shot selection. But again, if people watch the game, not biasly, not frustrated, Kentucky forced Auburn into taking the shots that they took. Should they have taken 24 threes? No, they shouldn't have. The worst thing that probably happened was how well they shot it against South Carolina, because they felt like they could come out and do the same thing. But Kentucky absolutely took away Auburn's inside game with their athleticism, with that big dude. They basically baited Auburn into taking threes. And even when they did, it was off-ball screens. They were fighting through them. Auburn had no flow. You said it yourself. They had no flow. Well, they didn't have no flow because they were playing against air. They had no flow because Kentucky forced them to have no flow. Now, after the tone was set and Auburn did have some open looks, they took some poor shots, quick shots. and kept shooting the three. That is the most frustrating aspect of a Bruce Pearl team. I wish from a discipline standpoint, he would say, you're 3 or 4 of 24. Stop shooting the three, especially, Zach, with the way the refs were calling the game. They were blowing the whistle.
Yeah.
They put Auburn to the foul line more than they did Kentucky. So take advantage of that. But again, Kentucky played different tonight from a defensive standpoint. And you can say, well, they normally give up 70 or 80. They do. And I would have taken exactly what you said. You tell me Kentucky scores 70, I'm thinking Auburn wins by 10. But Kentucky found some kind of defensive continuity with what they did to Ole Miss too. That's 2 games in a row where they've D'd it up a little bit. I don't know. Maybe they're getting healthy. Maybe they're able to play more dudes. Now, here's the other thing that's frustrating. One of their best players didn't play tonight. Mitchell, their best rebounder and a guy that gives you 12 points a game, did not play. How embarrassing is that?
Yeah. I feel so bad for those students that have been out there for 3 days. And they were there. They showed up despite probably not getting a whole lot of sleep since Wednesday. That became a national story. I mean, you had to pay $500 to have a place to sit in that arena. And that's what you put out. Like, that's what you got to see. It's just frustrating, man.
It is, but you know what?
Like, what's the point of having big games if you can't win any of them? Like,
well,
what's the point?
We got the recency bias needs to stop. Auburn has played. How many games have they played?
Auburn
in the last
is 1
5
in 5 against good teams, Darrell. They are 1 in 5 against good teams.
But you're talking about people having to pay $500 to get into arena and all the students camping out. How many times have the students camped out in the last 5 years and game day been there? 5 years. That's the first game I think Auburn lost with game day there. They beat Kentucky a couple years ago. They beat A&M. They've won some big games when Billis and the boys have showed up. Now this year, you're saying they're 1 in 5. I get it. But this $500 a ticket thing, they've done that for the last 3 years. They've had game day there. They've camped out.
You're right. That's fair. That's fair.
Normally when they camp out and see games like this, they win. I mean, you know, that's why we joke about it being people talking about where their Super Bowl or whatever. You know, how many times has it been a Super Bowl? The USC game, the Alabama game, Auburn won those games when they camped out and the ticket was high. I get it. It's frustrating, but Kentucky has a lot of talent. But Auburn did do some stupid things that were self-inflicted, but Kentucky's not a scrub. I mean, Kentucky has been playing not to their capability and their potential, and it seems like they have flipped the switch to find a way to do that.
Mm. So you're not as frustrated about this loss as I am, right? I mean, I think we're in agreement there. Is that fair to say?
I am shocked about the loss. I thought Auburn was going to win double digits. I just did not think, because I didn't think Kentucky was going to defend the way they did. I just didn't. I looked at trends and said Kentucky hasn't stopped anybody all year, and Auburn's playing at home, and I looked at trends. I looked at history. Never did I expect Kentucky to guard the way they did and for Auburn to shoot the way they did at home. And I dang sure didn't expect Jalen Williams to tweak his knee with about 8 minutes left to go in the game.
That's potentially devastating. Obviously, it made it feel like there was no chance Auburn's going to climb back into it tonight, and we'll see if we get an update on that tonight or not. But, I mean, gosh, praying for Jalen Williams. That would be devastating.
That would be very devastating. And I wanted to say the 15-0 points off turnovers, 15 points off turnovers in the first half.
Sure.
Absolutely can't. Auburn's usually the team that gets those.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually the team that turns that into transition baskets. They didn't. And look, everyone can have an opinion. I respect everybody's opinion. That's great. To sit there and say Auburn stopped themselves and give Kentucky no credit for what happened tonight is just not being realistic. It's a combination of both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not a great situation. Not a great situation.
And it just takes one night. Kentucky could be terrible on defense all year, but it just takes one night to be good on defense for it to make a difference in the game. It's just like a team that shoots threes terrible all year, but then they have that one game where they shoot at 50%. They're still in the lower percentile, but that one game, they did it.
Yeah. I think that's where we're differing on where we're coming from with this, because I think this game said more about Auburn than it said about Kentucky. I mean, outside of beating Alabama at home, which was awesome, and South Carolina, it felt good, and the fashion in which they beat South Carolina was awesome. That was insane. But them losing to LSU, like that kind of makes that loss feel a little bit worse now, right?
It does.
But
It really does.
I mean, just when you look at what Auburn's done against good teams, and I'm not putting South Carolina there anymore. If you want to, we can. We could say, 2-5 or whatever. But in these games that matter most, it's the ones where we've dropped the ball. And at some point, it's like, is this just who this team is? Like, is the SEC, is there a big gap between the top 4 or 5 teams? And Auburn's the last of that 4 or 5 team tier. And there's a massive gap. And there's everybody else. And that's kind of what it's looking like now.
When you say the big games Auburn lost, you don't think that at the beginning of the year when Auburn had to go on the road to Arkansas, when Arkansas had beaten Duke, and Auburn wins that game, or goes on the road to Ole Miss, or waxes Alabama at home, or South Carolina was in the top 12 in the country. I mean, Auburn has
Let me
won some games.
Let me rephrase. Yeah. Record against good teams. I shouldn't have said big games. I should say good teams.
Right. Because at the time, they had a big game feel. Now, they may turn out at the end of the year to not be such a big win. I get that. And having hindsight is, being able to look back on that is an advantage or a luxury. But at the time, they were big games. And you want to know why they were big games? Lose one of them and see what happened. Lose to Alabama. Lose to South Carolina last Wednesday night. Lose on the road to Ole Miss and split with them. It takes on a completely different feel of the season.
It does. I mean, I think losing tonight totally changed how you feel about the rest of the season.
It changes what Auburn, in my opinion, what Auburn can accomplish, their goals and their expectations, especially if Jalen Williams, which we don't know how severe the injury is, but if he's out for any extended period of time, and Auburn has to go on the road at Tennessee and at Georgia, who gave, Florida all they wanted today at home in Georgia, I don't know. I think just, I will say this. I think the week off comes at a really good time. I think it really helps get some things refocused, restructured.
Especially with Jalen leaving the game early.
Yeah.
Because either you give him extra time to heal or you prepare for what it looks like without him. I mean, hopefully that doesn't happen. But you're right. As far as the timing, 100% I'm there with you. Let this sit a little bit. Let this sit a little bit. And let Bruce Pearl and this coaching staff use that as motivation throughout the week. I'm 100% okay with that.
I look at things like, I expect so to further that point. I hope don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm extremely disappointed in the loss because I felt like Auburn was going to win this game, and I'm surprised that they lost. I am for a variety of factors. No way. And even when it got to like 5, I kept thinking, here comes the run. Here comes the run. Auburn's fixing to take the lead. And 3 times, Zach, they had a chance to get it to within 3 or 2 and missed open threes. Didn't drive it to the basket or whatever. I think if you can get it to 2 in a couple of those instances, where I would say some things were self-inflicted early in the first half, there were 2 possessions where Auburn had a chance to cut it to 5 and 4. And I love Chad Baker-Mazara, but he tries to go behind the back. And 2 times in a row, he turns it over. It goes the other way, and Kentucky scores. That's a
it would have been so awesome
swing.
If he landed one of those, though.
Yeah, it's a 4-point swing. But we got nothing off the bench. I feel like I think KD didn't play well. We know Aiden didn't play well. Trey didn't play well. And the common theme there is that's all guards. And we, from a guard perspective, and then you don't get anything from Jalen Williams, who you normally do, and you're doomed. You're absolutely doomed.
Yeah, I mean, even before Jalen went out. I mean, he still played 24 minutes, which is less than Jalen would normally play, but 1 for 5, had 3 points, no rebounds. It just wasn't a good game.
No, and I wonder, if that's I don't know. It looked like he had some, I don't know if Kentucky's defensive, what they did schematically, defensively took Jay Will out of the game. But he looked like he had some open looks. I know he missed some open threes that he normally knocks down, and that gets him going. It really does.
Yeah, sure.
But I think Auburn quit too early, gave up too early trying to score in the paint. I really do. I think that they just kind of, once Kentucky packed it in the paint and they took that away, Auburn just panicked and just stopped trying instead of continue, especially when, again, they're blowing the whistle and calling fouls.
Yeah, no question. All right, Auburn has 5 games left. 5 games left. Realistic expectations and the live chat drop what you think the record will be for Auburn's final 5 games. We dive into that and more on this game in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Alumni Hall. Darrell, it's your favorite place to buy Auburn gear. It's my favorite place to buy Auburn gear. They've got 3 great physical locations in Auburn, Opelika, and Huntsville. I stopped by there yesterday, Friday, to get a new Auburn baseball shirt to wear to the game that I ended up covering with a jacket because it was randomly super cold this weekend. But still, they've got all sorts of stuff over there at Alumni Hall. 3 physical locations in Auburn, Opelika, and Huntsville. Darrell's been to all 3 of them. He can vouch for all 3 of them. Or you can visit it online at alumnihall.com. 5 games left for the regular season slate for these Auburn Tigers. They go to Georgia. As you said, they're off in the midweek, so they don't play again until next Saturday. Georgia's not very good. That should be a win. That's not a win. Not good. Not good. They go on the road to Knoxville. 6 o'clock tip in Knoxville on a Wednesday night. They host Mississippi State. You got to think that'll be a revenge game. They'll be hyped for that one. They go to Missouri on a Tuesday evening, 8 o'clock tip. Missouri still hasn't won one yet, have they?
Not that I know of.
No, I don't think they have. If not, they've won one at the most. And then they wrap up the season hosting Georgia. So 5 left. Darrell, your thoughts on what the record will be?
Can I preface this by wondering if Jalen Williams will be in the lineup for those 5 games? I think that's a fair assessment because it's a completely
fair question.
Fair question. I mean, I think it's a completely different team without him than with him. And I wouldn't.
How big is the swing, do you think? Because I would probably say 4-1 with him,
and I'd say 2-3 without him. I do. I think he's a 2-game. It's a 2-game swing with him.
Maybe I'm not gonna push back on that.
So that's my answer.
It feels like a lot. Like that feels like a lot, but I'm not gonna argue it.
He's outside of Broome, he's Auburn's most important player, and when he plays well, Auburn is dang near unbeatable. Let's just be honest. They are. They absolutely pound people. And if he doesn't play the rest of the year, and again, we don't know. It could be a strain need. Some of those look worse than they are. They feel worse than they are. I don't know. But his explosiveness is a big part of his game. And even if he comes back and he's not 100% healthy on that knee, and you take away that leaping ability and that explosiveness, again, with him healthy, 4-1. Without him, 2-3. And Auburn limps into the SEC tournament with at 11-7 conference record, and probably slides from the 3 line to the 6 line in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. So some people are saying 4-1's not realistic. And in a normal situation after tonight, I'd entertain that. I think it is, though, because of the 5, you play Georgia twice, who's 4-8 in the league.
Missouri.
And then Missouri, it's on the road. I get it. They're 0-11. They're awful. They are terrible. And so, that's 3 of them. Mississippi State's at home for 1. 2, they beat you earlier in the year. In revenge games, Auburn's good. Auburn's good in revenge games. So I don't think 4-1 is crazy. I really don't. So, do you have Auburn losing on the road in Athens? Is that what makes it unrealistic? Is you just think Auburn's going to lose on the road? I don't fully get the argument of why that's unrealistic. Because Jalen, let's just call a spade here. Is Jalen great on the road? Even if you're losing him, and hopefully we don't. Because the depth is going to be crucial here. But as we talk this out, I think it's 4-1 with Jalen, 3-2 without.
Yeah, I'll stick with the 4-1 with, 2-3 without. And I just think you could drop one of those games that you should win. I didn't think that Auburn was going to lose tonight against a Kentucky team that did not look good a week and a half ago. They were dead in the water. People were asking for Cal's head. He comes, they play Ole Miss at home. Look good defensively. I thought, no way they're going to string 2 in a row. And, Reeves went crazy. Edwards went crazy. They got dudes fouled out, too. They were in foul trouble. So either Auburn didn't defend, for all the people saying it's 100% Auburn and not Kentucky. Yeah, you're right. Auburn just let Kentucky blow right by them and lay it up in the basket and did not try to guard them. Kentucky did nothing. They did nothing.
But Darrell, it's not like Kentucky blew up. I think this is below their average.
Okay, look at what they shot. pull up their stats. Pull up their stats what they shot. They didn't shoot it good from 3 in the second half, but I think they ended up shooting around 40% for the game.
44 from the floor,
44% from the
three.
field is 44 from the field's decent. And then Auburn shot 30 something. I mean, again, look at the fouls. Look at how much. Look at how many fouls they had compared to Auburn. Auburn got the foul beneficial. They got the benefit of the doubt with fouls, and Kentucky overcame that. Didn't Kentucky out-rebound Auburn?
Yes. 39-36. I mean,
so you're
close,
right.
yeah.
Kentucky didn't. Yeah, I mean, not you, but I'm just saying people that say Kentucky did nothing. You're right. Those balls just fell into their hand out of the sky. They made no effort to get rebounds.
It's not an all or nothing thing. I mean, the argument
they caused turnovers. They caused turnovers. They out-rebounded Auburn, and they shot at a better shooting percentage. They had a say in what happened tonight. That's
sure, but it's not an all or nothing thing. I still think it was more about Auburn than it was Kentucky.
I think it could be both. I think you could break it down and say it was just as much about Kentucky playing at a higher level tonight that it was Auburn absolutely wetting the bed. It's both. Auburn did not play well. Auburn, made some self-inflicting wounds, did not play at the level they're used to playing, and did some things that were stupid, that were self-inflicted. But on the other side, Kentucky did some things well that they normally haven't been doing and caused some of that. I think it could be both.
Yeah, the turnovers being Kentucky having 12 and Auburn having 11, but Kentucky scoring 23 points off turnovers versus Auburn's 10. Like, that's pretty staggering. And that's usually where Auburn's kind of,
now some of those
a mismatch.
I'll be fair and be honest and say some of those turnovers were just unforced turnovers, bad passes, not, you know what I'm saying? Not Kentucky stripping the ball or stealing the ball. Auburn threw it out of bounds, or they made a bad pass, or they turned it over with it being a self-induced turnover and not being forced. But there were some that Kentucky, when Katie put the ball on the floor and the dude stripped him, I mean, I don't know. I just saw a combination of both. I saw Auburn playing crappy and beating themselves at points during the game. And then I also saw Kentucky being the reason and playing at a high level and getting it done too.
Yeah.
They were sloppy. There's no doubt they were sloppy.
For sure.
They were. And that caused them to fall behind early. But, all that being said, it was still amazing to me they were down 10 at halftime. I mean, I was like, what the heck? This feels like it should be 16-18,
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the point guard situation at Auburn?
It's concerning. It's really concerning because when Trey Donaldson plays well, I start to buy into that. I start to buy Trey Donaldson stock and think that the point guard position is solved, but he disappears too much. There's no consistency. Mm-hmm. And when he plays well, Auburn plays at a really high level. Aiden has disappeared. Okay, I'm just going to say it. I hate it. He's a freshman. He's almost unplayable at this point. He misses shot after shot after shot. Won't put it on the floor to go to the rim. It's it's a weakness, and teams will expose it. Teams will expose that weakness when they know you don't have a point guard that's willing to or that's able to run the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like Trey's mindset. It just seems to be hit or miss, but I mean, I don't think Trey is the problem here. But if you want to play Aiden less minutes, it's like I don't know what you do, because then with the way the 3-point shots are falling, like, do you want to put Denver at the 1? Like, I know some Auburn fans are excited about that, and I get it. It's exciting, it's different, it's new, it's something fun to look at. But over the course of 40 minutes, like I kind of want Denver just shooting, being off ball at the 2. So I don't know if that's the best thing.
I think he looks more comfortable at the 2. I just wonder if you have no choice. And the only thing I would say that's a positive about Denver Jones playing the 1 is he's your best free throw shooter. And anytime you can get the ball in the hands of your best free throw shooter more often, and at the point guard position you do, then that's beneficial. But yeah, I like him coming off the ball. I don't know. Trey's going to have to, play more efficient minutes, and Aiden's going to have to step up, or you're going to see Denver Jones play more minutes at the point guard.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens moving forward. We'll see what happens moving forward. So we will be back on Locked On Auburn Monday morning, and obviously we'll do our next postcast after Auburn and Georgia this upcoming Saturday. Darrell, how can people check out everything that you've got going on?
You can follow me on X, DAP6410, and then I'm with you Wednesdays and Fridays on Locked On Auburn. And after we will not have a basketball show during the week because we are off. Auburn has its bye week.
That's right. Yeah, so we'll be back in postcast form next Saturday. Guys, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on Monday. This has been Locked On Auburn.